All right. Well, Mr. Heston, welcome back to Dallas. It is so good to see you again.
Well, thank you, Bobbie. I've shot a couple of films and worked on stage here in Dallas too, and it's good to be looking forward to still another one.
Well, that's a very exciting thing for Texans to know about, that your next picture, which is called The Last Man Club, is going to be filmed in our state.
Yes, I think so too. As I said, I've made a couple of pictures here, and it's always good place to come. I peddled my books here too.
Yes.
I've gone to openings here.
What is the significance of the Last Man Club?
So the Last Man's Club is what they call it.
Last Man's Club.
Because in the war, I think it was started by the Brits, a flight crew would buy a very expensive bottle of wine, a very large bottle, but no one would open it. And it went in, eventually the idea was it would go to the last man alive. And this is about some American pilots, a flight crew in B-7, who were in a B-17. And the war's over and they've come home more or less in one piece, but now they're old guys. And they fall on hard times. And it's really a very interesting script. When Fraser showed it to me, I thought, oh, I really have to do this one.
Is it based on a real person or real men?
No, it's a fictional story, but the Last Man's Club was reality. Many flight crews did that. As far as I know, it's just the flyers that did it. It may have been infantry as well. The Brits may have done it.
You had some experiences with aircraft during World War II, did you not?
Yes, I was in the Aleutians in B-25s, a much less strenuous undertaking than flying out of Britain in the 8th, which is this story. But as somebody said quite accurately, men don't fight for their country. They don't fight for home and mother. They fight for their buddies, for the guy you're with. That's true.
You were a tail gunner.
No.
No?
Radio gunner.
Radio gunner?
Yes.
You were a radio gunner then?
Radio man who had a responsibility in one of the guns as well. And as I said, I had a very easy war. We couldn't fly most of the time. We were based in the Aleutians, and the average wind velocity in the Aleutians is 37 miles an hour. So we had very little opportunity to win the war.
So you just had to be there?
Well, the idea is to come back, and we managed that.
This, though, will be the first movie you have made about World War II, right?
No.
No?
Midway.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm trying to think. And I made another movie about the Italian campaign, The Pigeon That Took Rome. And there probably were a couple of others in there.
Are you saying that your memory's no better than mine?
No, that I can't. I've made a lot of films. That's what it is.
Your son is going to direct this.
Indeed.
And how did he come about this project?
He found, was given the script written by a man named Bo Brinkman, and he liked it very much. As always, there are things you don't like and you change, but he has been developing it for quite a while, and it looks like it'll come to fruition now. It's a very good piece. We're all very excited about it.
You're going down to Galveston, and you're going to we're going to see you in a B-17.
Indeed.
What else is going to take place in Galveston?
Well, we make the movie, most of it down there.
But is that particular plane going to be used in the film?
Yes, yes, indeed. There, as you may know, there are a fair number of B-17s still flyable, and we'll be shooting some footage in it.
Will you go up in the plane?
Oh yeah, you don't. No good deal on the ground.
But, you know, there are ways that you can.
Well, no, we will be using most of the story takes place before they get to the B-17, but we will be shooting in a flyable B-17. You always want to pick one that flies.
Preferably.
Yes.
If we could just talk a moment about some other aspects of your career.
Mhm.
We understand that they're going to make another Planet of the Apes.
Yes, I think so. Arnold has been interested in the project, and he could do Colonel Taylor. They have not approached me, and I would not accept playing one of the orangutans. Those makeups were just impossible. Of course, I was practically naked through much of the film, but that's an easier undertaking.
I remember visiting you on the set of Planet of the Apes.
It's a good movie. It was, indeed, it's a very good movie. It was really the first of the space operas. This was before Lost in Space or Star Wars or any of those, which of course are still thriving. But Planet of the Apes was the first one, and Frank Schaffner directed it, fresh off Patton, and we had good people in it.
And then, of course, I think anytime people say the word Charlton Heston, they've quickly follow it with Moses. And
yeah, that's a memorable role. I've been very fortunate. I've had the opportunity to play at least 8 or 9 genuinely great men, among them Moses, of course, and several others. 3 presidents, Jackson, Jefferson, and Roosevelt, and a couple of kings, several kings, a couple of geniuses, Attila the Hun, and great men are more interesting to play than the rest of us ordinary guys. Most of them live quite meager private lives, I suppose because they're too busy driving the Moors out of Spain or painting the Sistine ceiling or winning the revolution or something. But I find them very interesting to play, somewhat withdrawn, as I said. The only exception to that in my experience, is Andy Jackson, who was a very hard man as a general and as a president, but he was passionately in love with his wife until she died just 3 days before he was inaugurated as president. It's kind of too bad, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Do you still have the scars from Ben-Hur and the chariot race?
No, I was fortunate enough to avoid many scars. I got a little scrape on my neck once, but no more than that. It was, that's a good sequence.
If they were making that film today, they would do, though, a lot of that with computer generation, wouldn't they?
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it loses anything when you don't have the virtual reality and you go to the computer?
The only film I've seen where all those sequences were shot in digital was Gladiator, and I thought they did a good job with it. I liked the film very much. And Fraser will be filming this, much of this of The Last Man's Club will be filmed digitally. And if you ask me what that is, I don't quite know.
Well, I have seen it done. I've watched them do it.
Yeah.
And I would be hard put to really explain the nitty-gritty of it.
Yes, it's an increasingly valuable method of making a movie.
Is there anything about movies today in general that upsets you or gives you?
Well, There are some films that I think step over what I would do in a film, but we don't make the bad ones on purpose. They just turn out that way sometimes. But it's I'm delighted that I still have films to make, and it's on the other hand, when I'm making a movie, I think, gee, I've got to get back and do a play, and then when I'm doing a play for a few months, I think, really got to find a good film to do.
Mr. Heston, I'm not here to talk about the NRA, but we cannot ignore the fact that you are the president of the National Rifle Association. Is there anything that you would care to say about it, or any update that you would care to say?
Well, it is becoming an increasingly significant organization. We will have 4 million members by Election Day, and that makes us one of the largest organizations of that kind in the country. And as I said, I will be playing a part in the election campaign. I almost always go out for the last election cycle. I went to, I think it was 47 states on behalf of some 60 candidates. And I'll do something of the same. This next election will be the most important election since the Civil War, as was said by someone much wiser in these things than I. And I think the American people understand that.
And one last question is, when might we see The Last Man's Club on the screen?
Well, it would take, people don't have much of an idea about how much time a film takes. I think the shooting on this would be a matter of 3 months, maybe 4. But then you've got pre-production, which we're in the middle of now. That can take a long time. Getting a satisfactory script, finding the people you want to be in it, all that is immensely time-consuming and dollar-consuming as well. And then once you've shot it, then the process of editing and scoring and changing things, that too takes months. So I would think this wouldn't be out till middle of next year, more or less.
Well, perhaps you will be back at that time then.
I certainly look forward to it.
So that we can do more promotion for the film.
Absolutely.
In the meanwhile, stay well.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your time today.
It's always a pleasure to borrow your audience.
Thank you.
Stand by for a minute.
You know the process. I'll ask a
Yeah,
question, you
sure,
start
sure.
to answer it. Okay.
Same question, same answer.
And I am rolling, Bobbie.
What is the significance of the Last Man's Club? Let me do that again.
Yeah.
What is the significance of the Last Man's Club?
Well, it came during World War II in Britain. I think it was probably the Brits who started it in the Battle of Britain. But a flight crew would also taught me to drive. And every day for several weeks, I went out and worked with him for a couple of hours, and finally achieved a modest competence. And we were resting the horses one day, and I said, you know, Yak, I can drive this sucker now, thanks to you, and I can't thank you enough. I'm very grateful, but I said, all this time, it's just been you and me and one of the 2 white teams. And next week, we're going to start shooting this sucker. And there's going to be 8 other teams out there then, and I'm not so sure I can cut that. And Yak pushed his cap back in his head. He said, Chuck, you just make sure you stay in the chariot. I guarantee you're going to win the damn race. And I did.
Okay, Roy, are we up to speed?
We are up to speed and we are rolling.
All right, okay. Is this movie based on real people or a real man?
No, it is not historical. It is about history, of course, about World War II, and the men who flew the B-17s had a very rough war.
Okay,
And
that's fine. Your son Fraser is going to direct this movie. How did he come about the project?
He read the script that Bo Brinkman, a Texan, had created, and they started fiddling with it and finally arrived at an agreement as to how it should be.
You're going to film it in Texas.
That's
in
correct.
what parts of Texas?
In Houston, or near Houston, where there are some flyable B-17s, which we need, of course. And I think some of it may be in Dallas, but I'm not certain of that.
The B-17 figures very prominently in this story, and you're actually going to have real B-17s.
Yes, there are several in Texas, flyable, and I'm looking forward to that.
You had experience yourself with aircraft during World War II.
Yes, I was in the Aleutians in the Pacific Theater in B-25s, much quieter war.
Okay. If we may think a little bit about some of your other films, the word is out that they're going to make another Planet of the Apes.
Yes, I think so. Arnold's been toying with the idea for several years, and he could play Colonel Taylor, unquestionably. What I am definitely not going to do is play one of those orangutans. That makeup was too long, too much.
What do you remember most about being in Planet of the Apes?
Well, it was, I guess, an important thing I won when we got to the last line. Frank Schaffner directed it, and in those days you couldn't swear still on screen. And I said, we talked of the line, and I said, the last line ought to be, you did it, didn't you? You finally really did it. God damn you all to hell. And they said, you can't say that. And so I said, how about, I said, I'm not really swearing. I am literally calling on God to damn the people that destroyed civilization. And Dick Zanuck, who was running the studio at the time, said, that's pretty good. I think that'll fly.
Okay. You still have scars from that chariot race in Ben-Hur.
No, I didn't get scarred badly. I got a little scrape once, but not bad. After all, it was a fixed race, you remember. I knew I was going to win.
Okay. All right. When might we see The Last Man's Club on the screen?
According to the way it usually works out, you spend several months preparing the shoot, you spend several months doing the shoot, and then you've got cutting. It'll be about a year after we start.
Okay. We cannot ignore the fact that you are president of the National Rifle Association. What do you have in the way of an update, or what's the latest going on with that?
Well, we're gaining membership rapidly. We'll have 4 million members by Election Day. That makes it one of the largest activist organizations in the country. And I'm, being a fan of the Bill of Rights and the Founding Fathers, why I'm delighted. The Second Amendment was very important to them.
Will you be out campaigning for anyone?
I always do. That's, of course, aside from the NRA. But I'll certainly go out on behalf of some candidates and some incumbents in, I don't know, 30 or 40 different places.
Okay. I think that'll get it, Roy.
Very good.